Welcome back. It's week 16 power rankings, and this week the New York Giants are at 32. They moved down because they got destroyed by the Ravens, and it was bad. So the Giants at 32, the QB situation is terrible. They went down to the fourth QB, Tim Boyle, who looked like the best QB on the roster. They cut Daniel Jones, so they're at 32. The Tennessee Titans, they move up, even though they lost, because I thought they looked better than the Giants, but they didn't do much. There's not much to talk about. They they got a fumble. Their defense looked all right at the beginning of the game, and then crumbled. They were winning at first, which looked pretty good, but then later in the game, it was bad. So the Las Vegas Raiders at 30, they are also dog water. This is the dog water tier. All these teams in this tier are the worst in the NFL. At 30, the Raiders, their defense was fine, and I lost my fantasy matchup because Brock Bowers didn't get the ball. Just want to point that out. But that has nothing to do with these rankings. The Raiders scored 9 points against the Falcons defense, which hasn't been great this season. So their defense is terrible. Sorry, their offense is terrible. Their defense is looking better. It's not terrible, but it doesn't matter when your offense can't score a touchdown. So the Raiders at 30, they stay the same. The Jaguars, they they lose again. It was close. They almost beat the Jets. The team's looking better with Mac Jones as of late, but they're not a good team, so I couldn't move them up or down. The Patriots, not much to say like the rest of them. They lost to the Cardinals. They moved down because it was a bad loss. They didn't score many points on offense. They just were bad. They're looking forward to next season. Okay, now lots of problems. These teams are still bad and pretty much eliminated. They are, all are pretty much eliminated, but technically not all. The Browns, they just lost to the Chiefs. They had to move down. Their QBs threw a combined 4 interceptions. Jameis Winston, people are like, oh, he's really good, but we realize why Jameis Winston isn't a starter in the NFL anymore. So now we have the Saints. They lose, but it was close. I moved them up a lot because they fought hard against this Washington Commanders in the second half, and they almost won. The Saints aren't a terrible team, but they aren't great. So they're at 20, 26. The Panthers at 25. They moved down because they lost to the Cowboys by a lot, so they had to move down a few spots, but they show potential. Bryce Young looks better than he did last year, and moving forward, that should be good for the Panthers. The Cowboys. Cooper Rush is looking better than Dak Prescott has this season, which is worrisome for Dak Prescott because he just got paid $60 million and Cooper Rush is outperforming him. So I don't love it for the Cowboys. And yeah, uh, the Cowboys are at 24. And now the Jets. The Jets, they beat the Jaguars. And not much to say. Aaron Rodgers looked good, but we don't know if he's going to be there all season. Sorry, next season. We don't know if he's going to still be good even next season. So he's at, so they're at 23. And they don't look terrible, but I don't know if they should just keep him. They're in a weird spot because Aaron Rodgers looked amazing. Devontae Adams looked amazing, but they're old, probably cooked. Okay, now the Chicago Bears. This is the failed hopes. The Bears, people like playoffs maybe. Rookie QB could do good under this system. None didn't happen. The offensive line was such a disaster. Where he's third all time in most sacked, Caleb Williams. And last game was no different. He got sacked a lot. There was so much pressure in the pocket. He really couldn't do anything. So yeah, the Bears failed hopes at 22. Didn't move down, didn't move up. They could, and they're pretty much linear in the playoffs. So another failed hopes, Colts. The Colts, people thought Anthony Richardson Last year with Gordon Minshew, they had 10 wins. This year with Anthony Richardson, people thought he'd be a lot better and bring them to the playoffs. That wasn't it. Anthony Richardson is looking better now, but at the end of the season, the Colts were bad. He needed time to develop, so the Colts probably aren't going to make the playoffs because of failed hopes. In this game, they lost. Anthony Richardson looked terrible through 2 picks, and if they won, they would have had a chance to make the playoffs. Failed hopes, the Atlanta Falcons. They're 7-7, and they could still make the playoffs, but that's only because of the division. People thought they would win 10 games. They were 6-3 at one point, and then things went off the rails because Kirk Cousins, I'm pretty sure, is washed, and the Bucks are gonna make the playoffs over them. So yeah, the Falcons at 20, they had failed hopes. Now moving up, we have the Dolphins at 19. They stay the same. They lost to the Texans. This is a long shot. These teams can all still make the playoffs, but it's a long shot. The Dolphins, they just lost to the Texans. They would have to win out and have a bunch of teams lose. They would need the Broncos. I'm pretty sure it's still possible. I don't even know, thinking about it now. But yeah, they would need a win out and like another team to lose out. So they're probably not going to make it. They needed this game and they lost. Their offense wasn't explosive, only had 12 points. The Texans didn't score a lot of points on them, but I think that's just the Texans being injured. So yeah, at 19, it's a long shot. The Niners, it's a long shot. They just lost to the Rams. They're at 18, and it wasn't pretty. The Rams did whatever they wanted on the ground against them. The middle linebacker left mid game, so they had no run defense on in linebacker other than Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, who I think was injured. It was just not good. They can still make the playoffs, but it's a long shot. The Cardinals, they beat the Patriots, so they're still it's not as long as a shot as the other two. They can still make the playoffs, but they would need Seattle and the Rams to lose a lot of games. And the Kyler Murray looked better, but really they needed to beat the Seahawks last week, and Kyler didn't deliver, so it's a long shot. All these teams have lack of talent either on one side of the ball or just the team isn't ready. The Bengals at 16, they stay the same. They've been at 16 for a while. This is just where they are. They're winning games now, so I don't want to move them down, but I can't really move them up. So it's a long shot for them. Sorry, not a long shot. I don't know what I'm talking about. They have lack of talent on defense. Their defense is terrible. They let teams score. They let the Titans score 27 when their offense isn't great. They have moments, but in this game they weren't even insane. I just think the Bengals defense is that bad. The offense is obviously good. They scored 37, and they still have a chance to make the playoffs if they win it. They probably have to win out, but it's possible. The Chargers, they have lack of talent at receiver, and now J.K. Dobbins, he's going to be injured for a long time at running back. So the team needs to be able to run the ball to have success, and if they can't, they're screwed because the the receivers are bad. The line's good, but the defense is supposed to be good. They let 40 up to the Bucks, so yeah, they just lack talent, so they had to move down. Washington, they stay the same. They beat the Saints barely. They just haven't looked like they did at the beginning of the season. I think it's because they just played bad teams, and the Washington just is just really good against bad teams, bad defense specifically. And yeah, but they stay the same. They can still make the playoffs. They lack talent on the whole team. Uh, Now this tier that don't have the pieces. These teams are good. They might be able to win a playoff game. They could miss the playoffs, some of them, and yeah, but they just don't have the pieces for a Super Bowl. The Seahawks, see, they're probably not going to make it the playoffs. They could, and it's realistic that they could. I don't think. I think the Rams make it over them, and they're at 8-6. I have them at 13th. I think they're better than some of the teams below them who will definitely make the playoffs. They just don't have the talent on off. They don't have the offensive line pieces. They don't have one piece that you look at and say he's great. He could the receivers. They don't. They have DK. He's good. He's not special. You want him to be special because of his size, but he's not. So yeah. And then JSN, he's still young. He looks like he has potential to be very great, but he doesn't have it yet. Tyler Lockett is fine. He's regressing. He's not what he used to be, but he's still okay. He's a very good number three. Gino, he maybe might be able to win a Super Bowl with him, but I don't know. So they just don't have the pieces. And their defense doesn't have the talent or the pieces. So yeah. The Seahawks just don't have the pieces. The Bucks, they're a fine team. Obviously on offense, they destroyed them. They're great. Baker, I don't want to sound down for all the teams just because they can't win a Super Bowl. The Bucks were great this week. They scored 40 points. The defense held the Chargers 17 points. Even with the injuries, they still score points. But I think that the corner situation might be a problem, and the injuries at receiver could also be a problem for them. That's why they're only at 12, but they played great against the Chargers. The Broncos, they're too young, but they played great against the Colts. That defense is insane. That's the Super Bowl defense. Pat Surtain had two picks or one, I don't know, but he had a pick and he played great. He's the best corner in the NFL. Nick Bolton is showing himself. People thought that they might trade him the Broncos. Good thing they didn't because he had a pick six and has ties top five in sacks with 11.5. He's playing great. But the offense played good this game, but they don't have the horses on offense, I think. So they don't have the pieces, but they're a great team and they played great this week. Now the Rams. Some of the they won the last game, try to move them up. They look great. I have them at 9 for a reason, or 10 for a reason. They're at 10 because they look great. Their run game, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, was good against the Niners, who have a good run defense, even though they had some people out with injuries and just walked off the field. So I like that their offense, even when Matthew Stafford isn't having success, they can still run the ball and be two dimensional on offense. And then the defense played great against the Niners. Brock Purdy was looking like not very good against that defense. And the Rams have the young, hungry defenders, which is great. That's what you want on a team. So I could see them winning maybe, but they just don't have but their coaching is the real MVP. Their coaching, that defense has no talent at corner. Their D line's all right. After Aaron Donald left, I did not think they'd be this good. They have a bunch of young people who Sean McVay and that defensive coaching staff is coaching up. And Sean McVay on offense, the offensive line isn't great, so he schemes around that. Their running backs are good ground and pound. They're not explosive. But they can muscle through people and they're good power backs. So and when Matthew Stafford isn't doing it, he runs the ball. He knows how to run an offense. So their coaching is overcoming the lack of talent on the Rams. The Texans, same thing. DeMeco Ryan. Their defense hasn't been playing great recently, last few weeks. So DeMeco Ryan at the bye said once the defense lock in, I think the defense is going to be great down the stretch. And they beat the Dolphins. You would like it to be by more. Like not beat them by more, but score more points on offense. But that defense is looking better. So I like that. I like Nico Ryan's coaching, and he's overcoming the like talent deficiency on defense. And then their offense is all right. They have a lot of injuries. Their offense isn't going to be what it was last year, as we can see. C.J. Stroud isn't playing as good. The offensive line's playing a lot worse, and they need some players on the offensive line if they want to go higher. So the Steelers, their offense isn't great. They lost to the Eagles. They had to move down. But Mike Tomlin obviously is going to coach that defense hard. And the offense, not at this week, it was terrible, what we thought it was. But Arthur Smith has been improving that offense a lot. Last season, it was one of the worst. So I like the coaching. And they have Super Bowl, all these teams, I think, have Super Bowl level coaching staffs. but the talent, I don't think they'll win it. So the Steelers didn't play great against the Eagles. They couldn't do much on offense, and their defense just wore out. And you can see that the defense is great, but at corners, some deficiencies. Their run defense is great. They held Saquon Barkley. Some people think he's the MVP to 60 yards. And so the best running back in the league is 60, which is good. And their passing attack destroyed the Steelers, so the Steelers have to work on things with their corners. So yeah, the Steelers come down, but they still have great coaches, and they can still do some noise in the playoffs, make some noise. The Vikings, they stay the same. They're fine. And they beat the Bears, and they scored like they're like going through these games. And I think this whole season for the Vikings is gonna be about coaching. This tier is about the Vikings. The Vikings have the one of the best defensive coaches in football, and Brian Flores, maybe the best. That defense has average to maybe above average talent everywhere. They don't have any player that you're like, damn, that guy is great. But their defense is top five. They have a great defense with no great players. That's amazing. And that's thanks to Brian Flores. This scheming is great. He confuses QBs, and I like what they're doing on defense for Minnesota. And their defense has been the best part of the team. Not to mention, Sam Darnold has had a breakout season on the what Mike O'Connell, I think, or whatever. He's great. He might be. He's one of the best offensive minds in football, top five. And so he has that offense playing better. The offense has a lot of talent, but Sam Darnold is still limited. He still throws some turnovers, but he's playing great against the playing great on the Vikings, and this is probably his ceiling, but it's still very very good. So now move up a tier to they got the right pieces. The Ravens, they have the running back in the playoffs who will be able to run through tough D lines and stay and get short yardage. They have the QB who's great. They can have a running offense. So the QB and he can throw the ball. He had 5 touchdowns. He has like 34 passing touchdowns on the season. He's playing great. So they have the quarterback for the Super Bowl. The offensive line, they can scheme around it. It's whatever. It's not terrible. It's like average. Their tight end, Mark Andrews, he's gonna turn it on in the playoffs. He's been turning on in the second half. He's a great pass catcher. Their receivers, they're average, but it's good enough to win a Super Bowl. Their defense, they have the talent, but it's playing bad. Their pass defense, their corners aren't great, but after this, they play great against the Giants. There's not much new to say because the Giants aren't a great team, but yeah, Ravens are great, so they move up past the Steelers, and the but the only problem is that defense. Whoever their defensive coach is, I don't think it's good enough to win them a Super Bowl, but they can get there maybe. The Packers, they're great. They have a QB who can take chances. They have a running game which will be good in the playoffs in the snow. They have the offensive line which is good. They have their young, hungry receivers. They remind me of their offense remind me of like kind of like the Giants offense in like 20 2007. They have a bruising backfield. They have good running backs. The QB takes chances. They don't have as good as a QB as Eli Manning. So I like the Packers. Yeah, that's why I have them at 5. And their defense is okay. It's not like the 2007 Giants defense, obviously. That's just the offense, like 2007 Giants. Their defense might run into some problems. It's not terrible. The talent is good. They have great players on it, but it's a safety. Great safeties are good, but they're not as impactful as a Jair Alexander who they have, which is good. But their run defense is lacking. Their defensive line needs some pieces. Kenny Kenny Clark, I forget his name. He's not good. He's good, but he's not as good as he used to be. He's kind of average, and he can still probably defend the run. And yeah, their edge rushers aren't playing as good, and that's very important. That defensive line and that front seven. But they're a great team. They just beat the brakes off of the Seahawks and held them not a lot of points. But that's because they're not great at running the ball, the Seahawks. So yeah, the Packers are a good team, and they have the right pieces, so they could make a run in the playoffs. Now the Eagles. You might say you should put them in the Super Bowl winners. I could see them winning a Super Bowl. They have great pieces. Their running back's the best in football. Their QB is alright. He's really a qualified running back. I don't think he's doing much. And I know he just had a great game and his stats are good. He has 18 passing touchdowns and 5 picks. He's doing a he's doing a better version of what Daniel Jones did when the Giants went to the playoffs. That's what I think he is. A little better version of Daniel Jones. At Daniel Jones' peak. But he can run the ball. That running offense is going to be great in the playoffs. They can make it fun in the NFC. And that defense is playing great. You hope Saquon and all the players don't get injured because their players have histories of being injury prone. But that defense is young and hungry, what you want in the playoffs. So yeah, I like them. They have the right pieces. The only reason why they're in this tier is because I don't trust their coach. In a sticky situation, I think he might fold. He might go for it on fourth down, do the Philly special in the wrong time, and then that could lose him a game. But they're a great team, so they're number 4, and they stay the same. Now, the Super Bowl winner, the Lions, are at 3. They moved down for the first time in a while. They won for a little bit. Now I moved them down to 3 because they lost the Bills. Not just that, it was if they lost the Bills and had no injuries, they would still be 2. But the defense has 16 players injured, almost their entire defensive line. So I don't think their defense has it. The Lions are very high for having one side of the ball not being very good. Like everyone, the Texans don't have their defense isn't terrible and their offense isn't terrible. The Rams, they don't have any terrible units. The Lions have a terrible defense right now. Hopefully Dan Campbell can fix it in the defensive staff, but there might be too many injuries. So they had to move down to 3, and they might move down more if the defense shows to be a bigger problem. But their offense is great, even though Dave Montgomery also got injured, which is a big loss hit to the offense. But Jahmyr Gibbs, they have a lot of pieces, so they're good, but I don't know how good, and they might just be on a downslope after all the injuries. Now the Chiefs at 2. They stay at 2, I know, but they keep winning. Mahomes is injured. He'll come back. If he doesn't come back, then they will probably go down a lot because Mahomes is very important, but I don't think it's the biggest story. They won by 2 scores, which was a thing that the people said the Chiefs can't do against any team. They did it. The Browns were bad, so it doesn't mean too much. But the Chiefs just keep winning. Not much else to say. The Bills, they're the best team in the NFL right now. Their offense is great. Their defense has some issues, but I think they can maybe start clicking at the right time. And Sean McDermott, he can get it doing a little better. The Bills let up a lot of points last 2 weeks, but it was against two very good defenses. Sorry, two very good offenses. They have lost a lot of those in the playoffs, but I think the Bills are equipped to beat some of the AFC teams and maybe get to the Super Bowl. So yeah, that's my Week 15 NFL power ranking / tiers. Thank you so much for watching. Like if you like the video and comment if you disagree on any of my rankings. So see you guys next video. Goodbye.